So, this is going to be a very, very interesting discussion, guys, because I want you to know this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't quite ready for the discussion until tonight. I'm probably still not ready, but we're going to do our best. So, this is about a company called Embracer Group. They've announced their intention as of April 22nd to transform into 3 standalone publicly listed entities at NASDAQ Stockholm. Now, what is this and why is this important? Embracer Group is an acquisition company. I work in business acquisition. So that's why I know about Embracer Group. That's why I know what this is and frankly how shitty it is. It's a major issue. So what Embracer Group is a Swedish company backed by venture capitalists. And they decided that they want to essentially create a giant gaming company conglomerate. So since its inception, I think it was created, 7 years ago? 6 years ago, something like that. They decided to go around and just start to buy up all kinds of gaming companies. And I'm talking about big boys. I'm talking about Asmodee, who created a bunch of puzzles and tabletops and physical games. God. We're going to start with this. Embracer CEO, this is the day after this was announced, admitted that mistakes were made. He could have, and he's saying he can take a lot of that blame himself. So the problem with the Embracer Group is when they bought a whole bunch of game companies, they tried to make a really, really huge Saudi-backed business deal for $2 billion, and it fell through. And this fell through a couple of years ago. And it was such a big break that they had to close, 7, 8 different huge gaming companies, including the makers of Deus Ex and several other big gaming companies. And they had to shutter dozens of different games. And the numbers were 9-month brutal restructuring program that lasted in the loss of 1,400 employees and canceled dozens of unannounced games. I can just start by reading this. And that's the problem with a game company like this, because no company should have power like this. Because when a big ass company has power like this, it basically will make sure and almost seal the fate of a lot of the games that it has under its umbrella. This happened to Sega when Sega basically forced CA, which is Creative Assembly, and Creative Assembly has made a lot of good games. They're mostly famous for the thank you, Neon Knight. They're mostly famous for the Total War Warhammer series, which is one of my favorite strategy game, video game series of all time, especially Total War Warhammer 2 and Total War Warhammer 3, which are fantasy Warhammer. They decided that Sega, as the overall company that owns CA and many other games and many other gaming companies, they decided they want to make a plunge into games as a service. And so they decided to create a game called Hyenas, which was I think it was an extraction shooter, if I'm not mistaken, that no one wanted. And it was a games as a service game, and it was an utter abject failure. However, and it never launched. However, it was a failure that costed CA and Sega $250 million. And now what happens in a situation like that, and this is just an illustrative situation to tie it back into Embracer, and I'll talk about what happens. And so what happened to this situation was CA, which is an otherwise profitable company, was kind of forced and told by Sega to push those lost costs back onto consumers of their good products. So me, who has no interest in some bullshit games as a service game called Hyenas, which failed anyways, as a Total War Warhammer player, I'm supposed to pay less. I'm supposed to pay more and get less from my upcoming DLCs in Total War Warhammer, even though it's a completely separate game. And the executives, usually in situations like this is you could go across gaming to all kinds of different game companies and find situations like this everywhere. But in CA, what happened was, and normally executives don't get hit and executives survive, and the devs take the hit, and it's just a shitty situation all around because games we love die, and so on and so forth. That's the normal modus operandi of what happens. And if you look back several months ago, let me see if I can bring it up. Total War Warhammer's Steam charts. Yeah, so if you can see, they're all reviews are mixed, and very recently it's very positive. This is a huge turnaround, but the reason it went super negative. Here we go. Yeah, okay. So the game launched in a broken state. It got better. It got to get more positive, and then this entire Embracer Group debacle happened. This entire Sega Group with Hyenas debacle happened, where it went super giga negative, all the way back in, what is this, August of 2023. And this is where we were told that as Total Warhammer players, we were going to eat the costs of Sega's failures in making games as a service game. This is what happens with giant gaming conglomerates. The entire community struck back. All the content creators unified. We said, no, this is bullshit. We all made videos. All the people who play Warhammer said that they're going to refund it if this happens, and so on. And it was a giant outcry to the point that CA and Sega as well, which was important for the story, gave a giant apology saying, hey, we're sorry, we're going to fix the situation, and here is how. And if you've been in this channel for a bit, you'll know that I judge every gaming company apology that we ever get. And the standard is CA's, because CA's apology was very cogent. It was very clear. It took the blame on itself very goodly. Goodly is a word. And also it had proper action items of what were the problems and how they're going to fix every single one of them, including the fact that they fired several of the executives that made these decisions, which is something that never happens in these situations. That's crazy. And yeah, Freya, they actually went through with all the actions. Correct. And Freya, that is why you saw the negatives go down and the positives happen. And then all of a sudden, with this most recent big, huge update, a giant swell of positivity, the very positive reviews that we have now. So CA did it completely right. Now, is Total Warhammer 3 still going to probably die a little bit earlier than it should have? Yes. Are people at CA still getting fired because of the massive losses that it incurred, over $250 million? Also, yes. But is Total Warhammer 3 ruined? Thank God, no. Total War games are at least going to survive. And, you know, we might get a Total War 40K game upcoming. And there's like all kinds of, you know, other positive things coming out. But that was the situation going the best it can at the end. In this situation, going back to the original talk, this is Embracer Group. So the restructuring happened. 1,400 employees and dozens of games were canceled. 1,400 employees were laid off. And the CEO of Embracer Group basically said that he needs to take the blame, which he should have said all the way back when all this happened, 9 months ago, but he didn't. So in the restructuring of this deal, the reason that we're talking about this is that now Embracer Group has faced a $2 billion failure to the point that it actually has to break. It actually broke the company into 3 separate chunks. So now it's presumably less risky entities that are themed entities. Because right now, before this point, Embracer was a grand total of, let's see if the wiki will tell us how many companies it has. Yeah, so Embracer owns everything from Amplifier Game Invest, which we don't really know too much about, Asmodee, which is board games, card games, and role-playing games. It's a lot of them as well. Like, this is easily probably one of the most profitable companies in the entire Embracer Group. CDE Entertainment, Coffee Stain, which makes a lot of indie games, Dark Horse Media, so if you know comics and stuff, this is a big thing. Did the government make them break? No. Their monetary losses made them break. Dude, the government didn't even step in to make them break, bro. It's insane. It was actually just the $2 billion loss that made the break. And I'll tell you the downside, the upside of this. Deca Games, which makes like a lot of free-to-play games. They have a lot of like MMOs that are free-to-play. They cover a lot of those games. Yeah, Hellboy Comics is Dark Horse, correct. Easy Brain Free Mode. Gearbox, we all know Gearbox, guys. Those are, that's a really big game company. They made a lot of big games. PlayOn, I'm not sure exactly what they made. Oh yeah, so PlayOn makes Deep Silver games, which is a lot of indie games as well. And THQ Nordic. THQ Nordic was a huge one. And this is not all of them. There's actually more other games that they own. They own the game that makes, they own the company that makes, what's it called? Deus Ex. And, or is that THQ Nordic? I think that might be THQ Nordic. And so as a result of Embracer Group buying the company that makes Deus Ex, that is why we've never gotten another Deus Ex game. Deus Ex is dead in the water because of this. That is a real life example of something that you and I and every gamer has lost. One of the best game series of all time is just dead in the water because of Embracer Group. So they lost $2 billion. They lost a huge gamble. They decided to drop 1,400 really good developers and cancel dozens of games. And they were forced essentially to break up into 3 companies. Now, let's read the rest of this, and then I'll describe the details that I know. So, it's been painful. We believe in what we do, and my teams, the vision we set out. I believe in public markets if you do it right. Fantastic place to finance your business and tap into investors and debt market. They were basically saying that whenever they bought a company, they would kind of leverage the fact that they bought other companies, and they would say, hey, if you join us, you'll get a whole different other slew of game devs from other companies that can work on your game. And you'll get all of these other marketing things that'll make your game even bigger when it launches and so on. That is how they rope people into joining Embracer Group. Wingefors said he's been dealing with many hits and criticism in Sweden. And Embracer Group is a Swedish company. At the DICE Awards in February, kind of funny CEO Greg Miller joked from the stage that one thing people in the video game industry never want to hear is the Embracer Group are here, before adding, they've really fucked up the place, haven't they? Yeah, so Kind of Funny Gamescast does a lot of like discussions, and he covers a lot of gaming news. That's why he was talking about that. But yeah, he's so the CEO of Embracer Group is a complete asshole. Now let's talk about the breakdown. Yeah, okay, yeah, 2 years. Oh god, I forgot about the detail. The Deus Ex game that I'm talking about, it was in development for 2 years. So it was essentially a half-made game that is dead. Eidos Montreal. That is the name of the company that makes Deus Ex. They were bought by Embracer Group as well. Sorry, my brain broke. I couldn't remember the name. Also, Saints Row developer, Time Splitters developer as well. We will remember how good Time Splitters 2 was. One of the best shooter games of all time. On par or better with Perfect Dark and GoldenEye and all of those. Yeah, rest in piss, Time Splitters. And Time Splitters, we will never get a Time Splitters 3, at least anytime in the future, relative future, because the developer is dead. So what a company, and this is, let me describe what Embracer Group does. A lot of acquisition companies do this. They buy a company in their lexicon. They take all of the assets and the good things in that company. And in this case, with the game company, they take the assets of the personnel. They take the assets of the IP, as in the ability to make a Deus Ex game, that kind of stuff. They take publishing rights. They take all of these other major components and good things a game company might have going for it, and they eat it. And then they fire a lot of people from the game company that they usually take over. This happens almost all the time a game company is acquired. We even saw this with Xbox taking over Bethesda, and we saw this happening with Xbox taking over on a much lesser level. This happens with even good acquisitions, and Embracer did bad acquisitions as well. So a good acquisition is like, for example, Microsoft taking over Blizzard. Blizzard was the other one. And so when that happens, when a large company takes over another large company, there's a lot of redundancy. You don't need two vice presidents that take on the exact same role, for example. So then one vice president goes away. They get, a little bit of golden parachute. They get out of there, get out of the way, and now you only have one vice president as opposed to two useless vice presidents that are kind of jumping on each other's toes. That's how it's supposed to work. And sure, that'll still lead to some really good devs getting fired, but that's a much lesser degree. You did see that in the acquisition of Blizzard. You did see that in the acquisition of Bethesda, but it was a much lesser degree. When a game company like Embracer Group takes over, you absolutely get like an almost cannibalistic situation where they eat the carcass, they take out all the meat, and then they spit out all the bones, and they shit out everything else. And the other problem is that when a game company like Embracer Group takes over a company like the Time Splitters developer, or the Saints Row developer, or the Eidos Montreal for Deus Ex, is they took the rights of the game, which means that the developers, even if they get fired and they're not able to make Deus Ex at Eidos Montreal, taken over by Embracer Group, that means they can't make Deus Ex alone either. The rights are taken by Embracer Group. So now the rights are in limbo, and they will never be used because Embracer Group is kind of a failing company now. And all of the devs that were key to making a Deus Ex game, they're gone. Everyone's split up. The game will never be made. This happens all the time with Embracer Group. These are just 3 examples, but it's like a terrible situation that happens to dozens of games under Embracer Group's purview. And I don't know if I could go through and find all of the issues, but dude, Madhead Games, Saber Interactive. I mean, like the names go, 3D Realms. Like, these are old, ancient game companies that made some of the best games of all time that we all grew up on. Crystal Dynamics, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, so like I said, they take over the intellectual properties of Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain, and so on and so forth. So what happens now? Who owns the rights when they split? Embracer Group owns the rights. They eat the rights, Sid. And like I said, they eat the rights, and the game devs that made those original games can never make those games. Because they got fired by Embracer Group. And Embracer Group did this on the regular. Every quarter, they would fire good devs. And the reason is because they wanted to lower overhead for company profits. And not even just company profits, not even company revenue, for stock. Embracer Group is a venture capitalist-backed company. And that means stock market. That means shareholders. That means they want line go up all the time. And that means a lot of times they would cut off their nose to spite their face. We've seen this with other game companies doing massive layoffs right before a quarterly end. Embracer Group did that all the time. And that is why they didn't even make good games. A lot of the games that were made under Embracer Group's purview was very few and far between. So what happens now? Now they split up into 3 different game companies. Here's the breakdown. First of all, Asmodee is a tabletop games publisher. Coffee Stain and Friends will focus on indies and AA to single A premium and free-to-play titles for PC, console, and mobile. So these are 2 different game companies. The last game company is being broken off, which is the funniest title, by the way. This is the funniest name of the game company that's being made. Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, which is so weird. And they'll focus on the AAAs. So specifically of any Lord of the Rings games and Tomb Raider games. Why did we never get an updated Lord of the Rings game, guys? It's because, yeah, Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. Actually, I'm going to show the meme right now. It was on here. It was on this list somewhere. 9 companions, so be it. You shall be Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends. This is this is one of the best memes that came out of this entire shit situation. But I had to show it off. It's so good. It's so good. Sometimes Twitter truly delivers. Truly delivers. But yeah, so Asmodee, which is going to be like I said, the tabletop board game arm. It'll have 300 IPs, including things like Ticket to Ride, Seven Wonders. I played both of those. Catan, Azul, Exploding Kittens, Dobble. I even have Exploding Kittens. These are like really major things. And this is their most profitable IP, by the way. This is their most profitable IP. Out of the 3 groups, they made the most money in all of Embracer. They're really fun games. Exactly, yeah. So the plus side is now Asmodee gets to focus on making just their shit. They don't have to carry the burden of other failed games and game enterprises and, fucking Embracer Group saying, hey, we need a new games of service game and we need it now. And then it ends up being dog shit and they lose $250 million. And then Asmodee has to carry some of that burden. That's what was happening before. So now Asmodee gets to focus on these games. And other tabletops, including Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Games of Thrones, Netflix, Lego, Star Wars, and including Star Wars Unlimited. Now, the next one is Coffee Stain and Friends. And Coffee Stain and Friends, like I said, is the single A, double A, it's kind of more on the side of indie games, more independent games, and so on. And so this includes Coffee Stain Ghost Ship, Tarsier, Tuxedo Labs, THQ Nordic, which we love, Amplifier Game Harvest. These games include some very key games that we all play. Deep Rock Galactic, including Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, Goat Simulator, Satisfactory, Teardown, Valheim. Valheim is only partly owned, but it is partly owned. Including 200 other IPs, free-to-play operations, including Sudoku, Jigsaw, Star Trek Online, D&D Online, Neverwinter Online. These are extremely, they have very niche communities, but they're popular, they're profitable, they're workable games. And a lot of these companies could not make other games. They basically, when you're owned by a larger game company, you can't just say, man, I feel like making another awesome Deus Ex game. We're just going to make it. That's what a normal game company does. When you're owned by Embracer Group, you go to Embracer Group and say, this is the kind of game I want to make. And they're like, we have 4 other games coming out this time, and we're going to need your team to work on Marvel's Avengers, because Crystal Dynamics was owned. And you can't work on, your Deus Ex game. You have to work on Marvel's Avengers instead. And that's what happened. That's why we never got these other games. And then finally, the last group is Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, which will focus on, obviously, Lord of the Rings, other key IP. This includes Crystal Dynamics, which focuses on Tomb Raider. Crystal Dynamics wanted to make like a whole bunch of other games, and they're forced to basically only make Tomb Raider games for the past 5 years. Eidos Montreal, Dambuster Studios, Warhorse Games, and this is a big thing because now this is a positive thing in this instance, because Warhorse Games is who makes Kingdom Come Deliverance. So now Kingdom Come Deliverance is not fucked over by Embracer Group. This is a very, very big thing. Other IPs include Dead Island, Killing Floor, Lord of the Rings, Metro, Tomb Raider, and many, many others. So the move has the stated intention of unleashing the full potential of each team, provide them with their own leadership and strategic direction. This is the positive. This is actually true, and they can focus on their own thing. This makes sense. This is the start of a new chapter which the failed CEO intends to remain active, committed, and supportive shareholder in all 3 of the new entities. This paragraph is key. This is why this guy agreed to it. So now, Wingefors, instead of owning Embracer Group, owns a giant share of Asmodee, of Coffee Stain, and of Middle Earth Enterprises. So basically what he's doing, by doing this, is mitigating his own risk. He's lowering his own risk by literally 1/3 each way. as well as still owning and getting a lot of profits. And the other downside is a lot of these game companies joined Embracer Group because, the Lord of the Rings thought they could, make a Lord of the Rings fucking tabletop game. They were thinking that they're going to make a Tomb Raider tabletop game utilizing the talents of Asmodee. And all of these kinds of connections that they thought they would be able to use. They will get none of these anymore. The other huge downside is that this is a trick that a lot of acquisition companies do. When an acquisition company gains a whole bunch of companies and they fail, they basically dump risk and they dump debt. So I don't know their financials. I'm going to see if I can find their financials. I don't think I'll be able to. But what I can tell you is probably going to happen is that Wingefors is not a dumbass. He is a financial guru, which is why he's done the steps that he's done. So when you do a restructuring deal, you're essentially stating that you're consolidating your debt. You want to get rid of a chunk of it, and all of the people that you owe money to have to basically give you a payoff, where they'll give you a much lower amount than you actually owe. And in the meantime, you're promising to do certain things, and this is what he's doing. He's creating 3 different companies instead of one major company. So he's saving money that way. The other way he's saving money is that he's saddling each one of these major companies with chunks of the debt. So he, as a single entity, a person, doesn't have to deal with that debt himself. That is what is going on, and I've worked in acquisition. For anyone who doesn't know me, I work in business. This is my day job. I know acquisition business very well. I know a lot of these scummy-ass companies that do the exact same thing on a larger scale and in a different situation, not in gaming and other, in engineering, construction management. Do acquisitions companies create any value? Sometimes they do. So he promised to create value, like I said, by basically saying that, you can leverage one company to help you with your own games development. And, Existential, you found the reports? All right, we can take a gander, and I'll see how complicated they are. And I probably won't be able to discuss them tonight because this is going to be... Oh, yeah, okay. So you found the good stuff. So these are all their financial reports. These are all their so those the interim reports are their the quarterlies and stuff. These are their annual reports. This is how much they made, how much each group made, and so on and so forth. This is going to be a lot of information, but I'll probably look through it a little bit here and there. But thank you for finding that, Existential. I'd have to Google that, so I appreciate you finding it. But yeah, so if you look through it, when they create their next report for each of the smaller companies, you'll probably see a giant amount of debt on each one of them. And that's why they did it. That's why they did it. And also in this process, they let go of 1,300 people, and which is 8% of the group's global workforce. And they canceled, we didn't have a number, they canceled 29 games over the past 2 quarters. So yeah, keep in mind, guys, there is good news here and there's bad news. The good news is each of these game companies can focus on their own things, and hopefully they don't have to saddle themselves with the issues of Embracer, canceling games and, kind of just fucking over everything. You get the gist of it? Yeah. The gist is all you need. And then the downside is they're being saddled with debt, and all of the pluses that they were promised when Embracer Group first bought them was all a fucking lie. And that's pretty much my talk. So yeah, what do you guys think? Any questions, any issues, anything for clarity? Happy to give whatever details I can. But I try to give like a in-depth, a bit of a ranty overview, but nothing too crazy and still digestible for you guys. So I know some of it went complicated, but hopefully it didn't go too complicated. Because it is a very complicated situation. And it's a complicated situation that I'm able to make sense of because of my background working acquisition. Because okay, Sid, you were asking, do acquisition companies create value? I work in acquisition, or I used to work in a lot more acquisition. Now we do a lot more consulting. When I worked in acquisition, Sid, one thing I would do, and one thing my company would do, because it's a family-owned business, me and my dad, my uncle, one thing we would do is we would focus on creating value. A lot of times you're brought into a company to acquire a certain thing, acquire a project, acquire a technology, acquire this, acquire that, acquire a team. And that is to create value in the company and leave the company better than when you found it. And that's how we got paid. If we created $100 million in value, we got paid a percentage of that. That is how it is done correctly. And that is how it's done ethically. Most companies don't do that. And most companies just eats the carcass. So yeah, that is the upside, that's the downside. You need more monopoly breakups? Yeah, exactly. You have to say from what Embracer Group did using 2021 and 2020 financial information. 1 to 2 years worth of people trapped with their homes due to a pandemic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was extraneous circumstances as well, but Embracer Group was a failure from the start. Existential, that's the problem. So what they did was they would go to their backers, their financial backers, Existential Nerd, and what they would do is they would say, we're buying $100 million worth of value here, which makes our value of the company go up, and that makes our stock go up. That is what they focused on the entire time. And they did this like fucking 50 different times with each small company that they bought, essentially as a whale eating like small little fishies and guppies everywhere. That's what they did. They didn't actually strive to create any real value. All they did was try to increase their stock. I probably should have led with that. That was probably that one sentence described exactly what Embracer Group did. Much better than I did for the past hour. I do apologize. But yeah, so that if you look at what they did since they were created, Existential, that is exactly what they did. That is exactly what they did. And yeah. More time on their hands than they would know what to do with. Partly. But it was also the fact that like they weren't making games and they weren't making good games. And the games that they made, they focused on games as service games. And they focused on a lot of financial failure games, striving for market data and striving for monetization that the market didn't want. We don't want bullshit microtransaction games. So any game that they bought and they forced bullshit microtransaction made the game fail. They would fire the devs who made the game saying it's your failure, even though they're the ones who forced it to happen. And then we lost an entire game company and a really good game. Basically, that was like the line of things that happened over and over and over again with so many different games. We actually got really lucky that games like Deep Rock Galactic did not suck. We got really lucky with Satisfactory. Certain games they let do with their thing because they were so profitable. Valheim as well. But like a lot of other games, like dude, D&D and Neverwinter Online became super pay to win after Embracer Group bought them. This is an example. Turbine Studios, which owns Lord of the Rings, they had to work with Embracer Group as well in order to stay in business. And if you go to Lord of the Rings Online, you have to buy a subscription. Everything is paywalled. It's fucking bad. Like quests are paywalled, microtransaction hell. And a really otherwise very good game that was viable on its own became a pay-to-win microtransaction hell. Makes you so fucking angry, man. Chumba says they literally paid an insane amount of money to destroy passionate companies and deny the world projects that would have created good revenue because, haha, more money than I'll ever be able to use. Exactly. And like I said, all they cared about was line go up, stock go up, shareholders happy. Jumbus. That is why. And Embracer Group was the biggest shareholder whore out there. That is exactly what happened. And like I said, when they bought companies and they said we added value and thus our stock should go up and our valuation goes up, we can borrow more money and we can do more of this and we can do more of that. And they didn't actually create anything with that or anything viable or good with that. That is exactly what happened. And that's why they became in a huge financial hole. And that's why they just, kept firing people. to make their financials look better, even though they're firing cogent companies with good dev teams that were creating things. And then all of a sudden you lose half of your game company, or a third of your dev workforce. And those are key players that were making like the graphics, that were making like the sound, that were like writing the story. That's exactly what happened, dude. That is exactly what happened. You can look at any of the failed games on this list, and you can probably trace it back to the exact thing that I just described. So, I'll leave you here with this. Rip Bozo, won't be missed. Rest in piss. Is it not loud enough? I've played this at the demise of Bobby Cockdick leaving Blizzard. I've played this at the demise of Kotaku, and I'm playing it now. Rip Bozo, you won't fucking be missed. Rest in piss. I need to find the actual song, though. Is it this one? Yeah, I think it's this one. Yeah, the shorts are shitty. But like I said, it's not like just all rainbows and butterflies, because the fucking asshole who created this entire situation, he is getting off scot-free with essentially a golden parachute, and he's going to be getting profit from 3 different companies while also offloading the debt onto other people that didn't deserve the debt. So that's the big downside here. So it's not a giant win. It's a win with also misses. Or it's like a win with also a bunch of L's. So I want you guys to know the incredible details of this information and what is going on, because it kind of really sucks what is going on as well. So I'm really glad. The good thing is Embracer Group cannot ruin other game companies now. That's the positive side. And that's why I'm doing the Rip Bozo. But the downside is, you know, good people are still going through it. Good game companies are still dealing with this shit. And the asshole who did this gets off scot-free. That's the big downside. And like I said, I'll give it to you straight. I will never blow smoke up your ass. And I'll always give you the full information. The full information. I'll never say that one, Sid. I mean, I think he should be thrown in jail. Like, dude, it's clear fraud. And he will probably never be tried, because people like this in his situation don't get tried in the financial courts that they should be. The financial courts don't cover things like this. But yeah, I do wish that he would be tried for it. I do wish any company that does this bullshit and obviously is committing what amounts to legalized fraud. He's smart. It is legalized fraud, but it is fraud. I really do wish they would be tried. And, you know, thrown in jail. I will say that, Sid. Lord of the Rings. Okay, so you can tell me about Lord of the Rings Online. I played Lord of the Rings Online last time about like 5 years ago, Gold Claw. And I think it was like right before Embracer Group bought them. And it was such a good game. Like, it was a little dated and everything, but man, there's so many good feelings I have for that game. The game's tutorial is so beautifully made. The quests are so well done. The world is so beautifully created. There's so much like love given for like being a hobbit bard, just like, you know, just doing a little flute shit in the background and stuff. It's such a beautiful world in Lord of the Rings Online, man. It's so crazy. Yeah, you stop 1 month after the buyout. Yeah, exactly. So Goldclaw played Lord of the Rings Online before, during, and after the buyout. I played only beforehand. And he says, I think they lost 80% of their paying players in a month of the microtransactions coming in. And the only players who played bought the lifetime subscription before Lord of the Rings had that bought out as well. Yeah, exactly. And everyone, and it kind of killed the game, Goldclaw. Exactly. It kind of killed the game. And it's extremely sad because it was a really good game. Yeah. That situation happened with so many games. Dude, Legacy of Kain is one of the greatest game genres and game series of yesteryear. Every Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver and Kane's Legacy and all those were so good, man. And those games fucking minted money. We've never gotten a new one. And Embracer Group is why. We could go down the list and keep finding them. There's so many of these, man. It's ridiculous how many. Yeah, Duke Nukem. Risk of Rain, thank God, didn't get shafted. But Borderlands 3 had issues because of this reason. Borderlands pre-sequel was dog shit for this reason. Homeworld is only now getting Homeworld 3. And Homeworld 3, in this entire thing, lost like, what is it, like 15% of their workforce, guys. Homeworld 3 just came out into early access. And we're not sure if the game is going to be good or dog shit. Because when Homeworld 3, I played the demo during Steam Next Fest just last year. Sorry, not just last year, just a couple months ago. And there was another Next Fest last year, sorry. And Homeworld 3 was incredibly interesting, but very flawed. And in that time, they actually lost like several huge key game devs through this Embracer Group explosion. And as a result of that, I cannot say beyond a shadow of a doubt that, yeah, Homeworld 3 will fix their shit and we'll have a really cool Homeworld 3 game. We don't know. Because so many game devs got lost in the shuffle. And maybe it'll end up being dog shit. We honestly don't know. Pat, welcome, buddy. We've been covering lots of big news for you tonight, my friend. All of the love, brother. Hope you're having a great night. Hope you're having a great night. You're on the PS1 version of Legacy of Kain? Yeah, dude. It's so good, dude. It's so good. It's been indefinitely shelved because of it. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's pretty much all of my information. I don't know if there's anything else that I could possibly add, but hopefully this does, take the shackles off of Dark Horse Media and they can start making cool comics again, for example. That'll be really, really cool. And we'll see how it goes. I'll cover whatever information I can. But it is sad news. A lot of game devs have gone away in this process, been fired and laid off through no fault of their own. A lot of games have died, and the fucking asshole who caused this all, he's basically Lars Wingefors has basically got off scot-free, as well as the other execs. Dude, these guys, these key people, all of them have gotten off scot-free. The CFO caused this shit. He's gotten off scot-fucking-free, man. And it's sad. But yeah, we'll see how it goes in the future. And now we'll cover this. You guys enjoy this talk? Feel free to give the video a like and a sub. It's important for the monetization of this wonderful community. All my videos are free. They always will be. All my streams are free. They always will be. We also do this and cover this on Twitch at capcorgi on Twitch. Hop on over when we do this live. I did cover all of this live, and I got audience participation. You can join on in anytime.